Hello friends, Namaskar. I am Anil Kumar Swasto. I shall present today before you the revenue system during the East India Company, starting from 1765 to 1857. Uh, Before I shall start to discuss about the revenue system during the British East India Company, I shall go to tell you what was the land revenue system during the RM period and in the medieval India and the ancient India. In the uh, in the ancient India during the Mauryan era or in the Gupta period or in the Gurjar Pratihar period or in Mughal period or in Shivaji's reign. It was established that there were the many kind of taxes. Land revenue was not the only one system, and in these eras, what happened that the kings were very uh, strong, and they have a centralized system also, and that is why we find that in the Mauryan era to the Muslim era, the system of land revenue collection was by the people, by the local people. It was the only one thing. And the second important thing was that the most of the emperors in from ancient India to the medieval India applied only a small portion of the produce that was taken as land revenue. These were the two characteristics. On the one hand, the local people were employed, and on the other hand, the land revenue was too less. And the third important thing was that in all the different rulers, whether of ancient India or the medieval India, all have demarcated and measured the different kinds of land. They have divided the lands on the basis of their fertility. And the second factor that was taken also in it, that the factors of production, whether it is land, whether it is person or anything else, they all were considered. That is when there was a drought, when there is a less rain, when there is a less productivity, we always find that the system has taken into consideration all these things, whether it is the Aryan era or in the medieval era. But the British East India Company, the foundation of tax collection was based on the theory of rent that is propounded by David Ricardo. And the David Ricardo theory was that there are the four or five kinds of the land, and the lowest kind of land, suppose, is the produces the 20 rupees, and 20 rupees as output and 20 rupees as input. Then the rent is zero, because the produce is almost equal to the cost. Input and output are equal. But when we go to the higher quality of land, that is, the produce is almost 40 rupees and the cost is 20 rupees. Then the profit will be, that is called rent, will be 40 minus 20 is equal to 20 rupees. And if we resort to further the better category of land, then the output will be 60 rupees and the input will be 20 rupees and the rent will be 40 rupees. And the fourth category, if the output goes up to 80 rupees and the cost is almost equal to 20 rupees, the profit or the rent will go up to 60%. And the highest kind of the land, the fertility was the highest, and the produce or the output is about 100 rupees and the input is almost 20 rupees and the rent is 80 rupees. According to David Ricardo, what the land belonged to the government or the state, and what is the produced by the land is due to indestructible power of the land, and over and above the cost is the termed as rent. So in all these kinds of revenue system which has been adopted by British India, by British East India Company, was based on this thesis. Later I shall tell you how it affected adversely, and not only to the English rulers and but also to the public and the zamindars, the intermediaries. I shall come to the first system. When say in 1765 the Allahabad Treaty was signed, for the first time the English Trading Company or English East India Company has got the right to collect Diwani, and it also got Nizamat. That is the cases relating to the civil justice and criminal justice, etc. So the company was then not in a position to take it in their own administration, because the company has no local infrastructure from the center to the state and to the tahsils and to the parganas and to the grams, villages. This was the only one thing. It needed a large amount of the employees, and not only the large number of employees, but it also needed the trained employees, and it also needed that they knew the language of the people of that local area. And the second problem before the Britishers was that they do not know how to manage it. That is why they have chosen, the Warren Hastings has chosen, the Clive has chosen it, that it left to the English people. It left to the Indian kings, and they have been given the right that you should realize the land, and a amount has been fixed for 1 year or the 5 year, and later in the 1993 it was turned into permanent settlement by Lord Cornwallis. So in these during the 1764 and 65 we find the amount of the land revenue or the Diwani, it was almost about 8 lakh pounds sterling. And in the 65-66, the first year of the East India Company, it was raised to 17.40 lakhs, not 14.70 lakhs. That is almost 80% more than what the Nawab has realized. And in 1791, it rose to 28 lakh pound sterling. That is just about what they have got in the first year of the company. That it was doubled. So these things were going on, and Lord Cornwallis has converted it into a decennial system. So he has put the zamindars for the collection, So what was the problem then? There were the two owners for the tax collections. On the one side there were zamindars. Zamindar were given the right of the ownership of the land, and of their zamindari they can give a fragment, a small portion of it to the other farmers. They can distribute it. This was the duty of the or the right of the Indian zamindars. And secondly, the land revenue was fixed by the company, what it is to be paid by the zamindars. So zamindars have to give or deposit a certain amount to the treasury of the collectors on a certain date. And if that amount was not deposited by that zamindar, then the sunset policy was introduced in 1994 that states that if a zamindar which has been given certain land or tenure as a owner of the land, he has to give certain sum to the company, and if he does not deposit it by the certain date, by the sunset, then his whole land, his whole zamindari was sold to other zamindars. In this way, there was a very hard and tough system, and because of this system, it affected in a dual manner. The first thing that it affected the people. People have to pay to the zamindars at the right time. If suppose they have not got the sufficient produce because of the drought, because of the rain, because of no production, because of the insufficient production, they have to take lending from the money lenders, and so they have become a slab day by day to the money lenders, and then they submitted it to the zamindars, and zamindars submitted by the time limit given by the company, by the fixed date. And zamindars also were prey of this hard rule, because the zamindars have not been able to collect the money. Then the zamindar have also to take loan from the money lenders, and they have to deposit it. And if they have not been able to deposit by the time fixed by the sunset, then their whole zamindari have been sold to other zamindars. So it was affecting the zamindars, and on the other hand, it was affecting the farmers also. And the company had laid down that 10/11th of the sum collected by the company, collected by the zamindars, have to be deposited in the treasury of the governors, and 1/11th will go in favor of the zamindars. So this was the system, and this system was introduced in Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, and some part of Karnataka, North Karnataka, Kurg area, and it almost amounted to 19% of the total land that was in possession of the company in those days. And secondly, the Mahalwadi system. In Mahalwadi system, we find that the owner of the land was the whole Mahal, that the unit or the village head, that is Pradhan. Pradhan was the owner, but the responsibility of paying the fixed amount to the company was to be paid either by the Pradhan or by all the people of that Mahal or the village. That is, the liability was single and joint both. And in this Mahal system, for the first time in the area ceded to the company, that is Allahabad and Kada, in 1801, Lord Village applied this system. And the credit goes to the Holt Mackenzie, but Holt Mackenzie devised the system for the operated or implemented the system in Kada and Allahabad, and it was almost 30%. But at the end of the day, or after some time in 1822 or 1824, it raised about the almost 95% of the produce of the rent. I have already told about the rent. That is over and above, that was above the cost, that was treated as a rent, and it, according to Ricardian theory, the whole of the rent belonged to the government because of the indestructible power of the land, and in the land belonged to the company and the state. So the whole thesis was behind this. So company wanted to use more and more of the total rent. Sometimes the whole rent has been taken into it, and later it was introduced in Mahalwali system was introduced in Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh and Punjab. Almost the 29% area of the company was under this system, that is the Mahalwali system. Then this Mahalwali system was again taken the problems, analyzed, and thereafter it was reduced to 66%, and further in Dalhousie reduced it to 50%. But that is only on the paper. The 60%, 66% was to be given of the rent, but the total rent was almost taken either by the zamindar or by the company. So in this system, the Mahal was the unit, and some kind of consideration has been made. But in this system also 70% and 80% of the output over and above the cost was taken as a land tax by the company. And the third system that was introduced, that is the Raiyatwadi system, and it was introduced by Munro in the Madras at the first time, and thereafter it was introduced in Bengal state also, and almost all the southern area of India except some part of it. And nearly 51% or more than half of the area of the company went into this regime, that is the Raiyatwadi system. The Raiyat means the subject, that is every tenant or every peasant or every farmer was the owner of that land. And in this, the important thing was done, that is it was left to the local persons, that local persons will use it according to the local system. But the amount was fixed, and in this system we find this was a very humane system out of these three systems of the land revenue that has been implemented by the British East India Company. In this, the local conditions have also been taken into account. The local persons have been put for the realization of the land revenue, and in this the productivity have also been taken into account. So and the lands have been classified, and so different kind of things which are uh, uh, humane, which were going to favor the peasants or the farmers. But after all, what happened? It was applied in the most part, that is more than 50% area of the East India Company, and almost this figure also went up to 50% or more than 50%. So this this system was that for the first time it was fixed at 1/3, and thereafter it reached to 50%. But in the paper it is said that 50% of the total rent is to be taken. But after all, almost 70% of the funds have been taken by the British East India Company. What were the reasons for the higher and higher rent? The most important thing was that the British East India Company employees were greedy. They wanted to become rich, and that is why they wanted to raise the limit of the land revenue settled for the certain areas. And secondly, it was the bounden, it was an urgent need of the company, because company needed funds for enlarging its personnel, for the payment of the salary of the personnel. It wanted to raise a huge army, and huge army should be paid out of this revenue, and they wanted to give a huge amount of arsenals or military equipments, and that is why more and more funds were also needed. And the second factor was the mediators or the intermediaries also wanted to give to take more and more money from the farmers. So in this particular situation, it was evident that the tax limit has to go up, and it went up. Almost 80% of the produce of the rent, that is over and above the cost, was collected by either by the zamindars or by the company. So there was a great loan to the peasants and farmers, and loan to the zamindars also for saving their zamindari. And in this way, they all have been prey of the vicious circle of poverty, vicious circle of debt. So this all have happened, and because of this oppression, the many zamindars and many peasants have been have tried to fight against this system, and that is why you find that in 1857 many kings, many maharajas and the general public and these zamindars also opened a march against the company, and 1857 rebellion took place. That is the first war of Indian independence. So in this revenue system that we find, there was a basic difference, that the RNs wanted employed the local system, the local administration, and the produce was, and the tax was very low. Almost it's varied from 1/6 to 1/4 of their produce. But in the British system, because it was operating on the David Ricardo's rent theory, that is, they think that over and above the cost, everything belongs to them. So they wanted more and more money. And the second system and the second urgency was that they wanted to win more and more area of India, and that is why they needed more and more forces and more funds for the salary and for the equipment, etc. And that is why they increased this amount of the taxes. And this tax was the only system through which they can get the land revenue, because this was a trading company. This cannot get the taxes from the import and export duty, and that is why they heavily dependent on it. So we find that the whole British East India system was so oppressive in nature that it united all the classes of the India, whether it is the zamindars or the nawabs or the other persons or the general people. They united, and there was a mutiny, and the first Indian War of Independence was opened against the Britishers. That's all for today.